when we all showed up, the week prior for rehearsal, and we clicked like that. He's like my brother. He's one of my best friends. I set him up with my roommate, is how close we are. He's wonderful. He really is like my family, and I'd do anything for him. And it's nice when you're fortunate enough to make those sorts of friendships with people that you work with, because they're rare. And to have a friendship like that really puts you in a position when you have to create a relationship on film where it's easier, where there's more trust, where you're less nervous about where a scene is going to go, and you're more apt to, throw the script over the balcony and say, let's hash it out and figure it out. And you know that you can trust your coworker. It makes it awkward when someone feels like your family and then you have a love scene. That's weird. But we got through it. It was certainly totally creepy. But it's our job, so it's fine. But it definitely, I was kind of like, I can't make out with you. This is super awkward.
Was he with your roommate yet or before?
No, I set them up afterwards. So, being at Toronto, watching the movie, sitting between the two of us, she was like, this is totally weird. It's totally weird. But it's, it's cool. I mean, they're my family. I was totally overwhelmed by him and his intelligence and his perceptiveness. Vincent is every bit as amazing as you would think he'd be by watching the characters he's played, and then some. And to be so cool and so welcoming and just so normal. We were shooting this scene, the first scene that he and I and Kevin shot together is very hurried, and I've come in out of the rain and I'm trying to figure out where he's been, and I think maybe he's dead and I don't know, and Mike's been shot, and it's this whole thing in the kitchen, and it's all totally frantic, and for me, none of it makes sense. That the entire scene there, Kathy's looking around not understanding why Mike is clinging to her and kissing her and sort of so happy to be able to kiss this man she loves, but so uncomfortable to be kissing him in front of his father, because she would never do that. And it's this very frenetic energy. And we rehearsed it a couple of times, and it took us a minute to sort of figure it all out. And I come in from the hall, and Vincent opened the door, and he was like, he just kind of looked at me for a minute, and I kind of froze, and he went, "You're good at your job. It's cool." And I was like, okay. And then he shut the door, and I was like, did anybody see that? Did anybody see what just happened to me? It was amazing, because we just had this big conversation about how we were going to change the scene and what needed to happen, and we got rid of some dialogue, and he had all these opinions and Kevin had all these opinions, and I had my input. But again, it's Kathy sort of getting thrown around like a ping pong ball in the scene. And then he just opened the door and was like, I'm gonna give you a little something because it's your first day working with me, and maybe you're freaked out, and I just think you're cool. And I was like, hey! It was very neat, and he proceeded to be that way for the rest of the shoot. Just great jokes, and he's got zingers that come in at perfect timing, and he's so intense, but he's one of the funniest people I've ever spent time with, and you don't always know that intense and powerful people are going to be funny. So it was very, very wonderful just to see that, and so amazing to watch him work. Kevin and I both sat there like little puppies, just watching everything that Vincent would do and listening to him tell us stories and talk about how he develops the tics for characters. And it was amazing. He went from describing little methods that he has for getting in his moments to quoting Irish poetry from the 1800s, and I was like, you're the coolest person I've ever met. It was neat. I loved every moment of working with Francois. He has such a beautiful soul, and I know that sounds very silly, but he really does. He comes into set and he's got this great energy, and very much like me, he's always gesticulating with his hands, and he wants to explain something, and being French, he's just got such a passion and such an innate love of art. There's such romance just in him, and he wanted to bring that to the movie, and the way that he explained everything from moments with Kevin and I, when when Mike can't take the picture of Kathy in her bed because she's too vulnerable, and he realizes he cares too much about her to make her part of his art project. And the way that Francois described it, he comes in and he's saying, like, this is your lover and she's this, and we're both like, absolutely, whatever you say, keep talking. He's fascinating, and he gets, when he'd get really excited and start talking too quickly, everyone would have to ask him to slow down because we'd get lost in his accent. And he's just got so many great things to say, and such a great heart, and it was as fun being at work with him, having him talk to me about what he thought was really the soul of a scene. It was as much fun being out on a weekend and, yanking him out on the dance floor with all of us, and, watching him and Kevin have like the bad dance off. It was amazing. He's the kind of person who you can really enjoy in any capacity. And then we finished the movie and he did the first edit, and he and his wife had Kevin and I and a bunch of people over, and they're opening wine and putting out cheese, and we're watching the movie, and I was like, this is fabulous. I want to work with French directors forever. But Francois in particular, he becomes the kind of man that, could be your uncle or one of your really cool cousins or someone that's like too cool to be your dad, but he treats you as though you're part of his young family. He hugs you the way he hugs his kids, and to have that on a set, particularly when you're on location and these are the only people that you have around you, it's really great. Living in New York for the summer was so wonderful. It's always felt like a home away from home for me because I spent so much time there with my family growing up, and I've spent so much time there since being out of college and working, and it's just something about the energy of the city that really influenced our movie. New York is a character in the film just as the rest of us are, and its pulse is everywhere, and it's really neat. It's a line that didn't make it in the movie, but Kevin and Monica, as Mike and Gina, are sitting in the car looking at New York and looking at Manhattan. And she says how funny it is because the people that are in it can't see it. Like, look how beautiful the skyline is. And then later, Mike is in Kathy's apartment, this high-rise at night, out on the balcony on the 44th floor, looking at the entire city. And he says to her,